So several years ago, I made the decision to become a Peace Corps volunteer. And so there are a few reasons I wanted to do this, but the main reason is I wanted to go to Africa. Not Africa, I'm talking Africa. The cradle of humanity, the ancestral birthplace of hip hop, R&B, and jazz, you know? And a big part of that was because of my friends in college. They were able to identify where they came from culturally and their heritage. You know, I had friends who knew they were Italian American. I had friends who knew they were German American. I even had friends who knew they were Hungarian American. I knew my ancestors came from Africa, but I didn't know if I was Cote d'Ivoirian American. I didn't know if I was Ghanaian American. I didn't even know if I was Nigerian American, but I knew what? I'm not Japanese. And so I kind of wanted to recreate the last episode of the 1970s ABC miniseries Roots, you know, where the African American author Alex Haley, you know, he went to the village where Kunta Kinte came from in Ghana, and as soon as he shows up, everyone just gives him a big African group hug, and you know, my mama's crying, my grandma's crying, I'm crying, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna do that, you know, and so I fill out the application for Peace Corps, and I fly over to Benin in West Africa, and I go through 2.5 months of training, and my liaison, a Beninwa man, a West African man, he drives me to my village, and as soon as I arrive and all these kids see me, they gather around and they start singing this song, and I'm thinking, wow, you know, Alex Haley moment, this is it, you know, and they sing the words, Yovo, Yovo, bonsoir, ça va bien, merci. And I knew a little bit of French, but I didn't know the word Yovo, and so I asked my liaison, so what does that mean? And he's like, don't worry about it, you know? And so throughout the course of the afternoon, there's like 10 kids who are singing it, there's 20 kids who are singing it, just like 100 kids who are just singing this song, Yovo, Yovo, bonsoir, ça va bien, merci. And I'm like, dude, you have to tell me what this song is. I'm full of anticipation. And he's like, well, you know, it means white person, good evening. It goes well, thank you. I felt my Alex Haley moment crumble in my heart and fall on the ground, you know? Like, I'm not white. No offense to you all, but I'm not white. And my liaison was like, you know, don't worry about it. We have to visit the mayor. So we go to the mayor's office, and it's just like full of villagers waiting for him. And, you know, like, I'm thinking to myself, what could cause these, like, little kids, these little teardrops from heaven, these little gifts from God for saying these things? And the secretary, she sees me, she goes to the mayor's door, and she knocks on the door, and she's like, Monsieur Leblanc, il est ici. And which roughly translates to, sir, the white's here, and I'm looking around, and everybody in the office is black, and I'm like, well, what is that all about? And my liaison is like, you know, just walk it off, don't worry about it, you know? And so, okay, I just suck it up. So I move into my village, and I'm riding on my bicycle, and the little kids are like, Yovo, Yovo, bonsoir, ça va bien, merci. And I'm carrying buckets of water from the pump to my home in the woods, and little kids come up, Yovo, Yovo, bonsoir, ça va bien, merci. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Crapping my brains out, vomiting because I drank some really bad water, I hear a knock on the door. C'est qui? Who is it? C'est Antoinette. It's Antoinette. Qu'est-ce que tu veux, Antoinette? What do you want, Antoinette? Yovo, Yovo, bonsoir, ça va bien, merci. I'm like, what the fuck? You know, I love little kids. Don't get me wrong, I love kids. But this would be kind of akin to being a white guy in Atlanta, Georgia, and your name is Patrick O'Malley. And Patrick decides to go back to Ireland to rediscover his roots, right? So he learns Gaelic, and he watches Angela's Ashes, and he reads like Ulysses by James Joyce, and he's on the airplane, and he arrives in Dublin, and he gets off the plane, and 3 little redheaded ginger kids come up to him and say, top of the morning, Negro. You know? The thing that most folks don't understand is black people feel alienated in this country, you know, like even after being here all these centuries. But the thing is, you go over there, and the alienation comes back, and it made me more cognizant of the fact that I'm not African. I'm a hybrid. I'm African American, just like so many other hybrids from other countries as well. And so, I'm just dealing with that, and it makes me more aware of my Americanness. And so one day I'm on my bicycle, and this like little girl, she's like, "Yovo, Yovo, bonsoir," and I stop my bike and I go over to her and I'm like, "Look, little gift from God. My name is not Yovo. Call me American Noir." You know? And she looks at me, little 6-year-old, and she says, "American Noir," you know? And so I get on my bicycle, and like a week later, I'm coming back from, teaching small business development courses to farmers and female cooperatives, and there's this gang of kids, and they're like, "Yovo, Yovo, bonsoir, ça va bien, merci." And then I hear this, "American Noir." And I don't even use the kickstand. I get off my bicycle, bike falls to the ground. I go to a side road candy stand. I buy a handful of candy. I walk over to that little 6-year-old girl and I just dump that candy on her. And all the little kids are like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, she called me American Noir, she gets the candy. So for the next year and a half, I train those little kids like they're dolphins, like, whoever calls me American Noir gets candy. Whoever calls me Yovo, they didn't get shit. And the thing is, I don't give them candy all the time, but I just give them enough to have the Pavlovian response going on, where, like they associate me with candy. So I basically become the Willy Wonka of West Africa. I become like Jamal Wonka, And after like being there the entire time and just before I was going home, I felt like my village finally accepted me. I was one of them, almost to the point where if someone from outside the town, from outside the village came and they saw me and they called me, "Oh, Yovo." It's kind of like at Thanksgiving when your uncle uses a racial slur and your dad has to take him aside. Like the kids were like, "No, that's American Noir. That's not a Yovo." And so I'm thinking, after I left, that was like 18 years ago when I left, and I'm thinking, when those kids become grandparents, their grandkids are going to come up to them and say, "Granddad, well, what are Americans like? You knew Americans." And their grandfather would say, "Americans, they had the candy." Thank you.